All rise for Her Honour, the Judge Impartial Analyst. Please be seated. The Court of All That's Fair and Good is now in session. The Honourable Judge Impartial Analyst presiding.
Thank you. What's your name?
Clerk of Courts Andrew Kent, Your Honour.
Thank you, Clerk Kent. Now, would you please read the charges?
Yes, Your Honour. Case 390, the IT industry versus the Mainframe. The Mainframe has been charged with the following offences: expensive cost of computing in the first degree, 3 counts of proprietary operating systems, failure to provide client service, and complicity in complexity.
Who is counsel for the defence?
I am, Your Honour, Mr. Enterprise Server for the defence.
How do you plead?
The defence pleads not guilty, Your Honour.
Thank you, Mr. Server. And for the prosecution?
J.J. Bunkum QC, Your Honour.
Thank you, counsellors. Ladies and gentlemen of the gallery, you have been charged with a very serious responsibility. In this courtroom today, you will hear evidence of whether the Mainframe is innocent or guilty of the charges it has been brought here to answer. You have the further responsibility of taking what you learned today and using that information for the good of your respective organisations. Now, if I was to add up all the media attention that the charges against the Mainframe have had over the years, it would make the O.J. Simpson case look like a parking infringement. Now, I urge you to discount all of this hype and to concentrate on the facts put before you today. I ask you to do this with an open mind and an unbiased heart so that justice will prevail. Are the prosecution ready for their opening remarks?
We are, Your Honour. My dear ladies and gentlemen of the gallery, before you today is a vile perpetrator of the most heinous crimes against society. The Mainframe monster has been scheming and plotting for years to get you in its clutches so you can't take advantage of modern hardware and software technologies. A popular misconception is that the lifeblood of the Mainframe is chilled water. True, it is a cold-blooded beast, but the real lifeblood of the Mainframe is its propensity to remain proprietary, closed, so that you remain in its fiendishly expensive spell. Today, the word proprietary strikes a chill of fear into the heart of every innocent MIS manager. Why? Because he or she know the proprietary is the spawn of the Mainframe monster.
Objection, Your Honour. Not only is prosecution sensationalising the issue, he has not adequately defined what he means by the term proprietary.
Sustained. The court asks the prosecution to define his usage of this word.
Certainly, Your Honour. Being the proprietary means new software applications can't be taken advantage of. Data stored on the Mainframe is hard to access. And ongoing software maintenance is an ongoing, recurring and expensive nightmare. During the course of this trial, you will hear testimony from an expert benchmarking witness who will clearly describe how you can get the same power from an orange as an apple. You'll also hear from the user of an alternate computing platform how easy and cheap it is on a different platform to the horrendously expensive Mainframe. During this trial, we'll prove this beyond reasonable doubt. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, what my overzealous and somewhat misguided colleague J.J. Bunkum QC is relying on is the old saying, perception is reality. We, on the other hand, will rely on and prove that the facts are reality. Fact number 1, the Mainframe is dead. Long live the Enterprise server. Fact number 2, with the announcement of CMOS 2, RAMAC 2, Magstar tape drives, and the latest versions of MVS, VSC and VM, IBM has delivered to you, ladies and gentlemen, the lowest cost of computing for the server of servers. Openness to run nearly every major application and development tool available today, and all of this built on the classic strengths of the System 390. Fact number 3. In 1994, IBM shipped a record amount of mainframe capacity, and the first quarter of 1995 was the 8th consecutive quarter of year-on-year growth. These are the facts. This is the reality, and we are ready to prove this to you today beyond any doubt. Now, the law states that the defendant is innocent until proven otherwise, but many, including my learned colleague here, have already labelled the mainframe as guilty. It is time to set the record straight. It is time to prove that the mainframe, now the enterprise server, is innocent of these erroneous charges. Thank you. Thank you, Your Honour.
Thank you, Councillor. The prosecution may proceed with its case.
Thank you, Your Honour. We would like to call our first witness, Mr. Howard P. Benchmarketing.
Mr. Benchmarketing, Mr. Benchmarketing, Mr. Benchmarketing. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the partial truth, and nothing but the bits you like? So help you, Gartner?
I do.
Please state your name and occupation for the court.
My name is Howard P. Benchmarketing, HP for short. My occupation is to promote alternative mainframe computing platforms by squeezing the last transaction possible out of benchmarks.
Mr. HP Benchmarketing, from your work, have you been able to determine what is the most extortionately evil...
Mr. Buncombe, would you please keep the melodramatic imagery to a minimum?
Of course, Your Honour. Have you been able to determine what is the most expensive computing platform available today?
Yes, it is the mainframe.
And could you please, for the court, point the mainframe out?
Certainly. It's over... Oh yes, that's it. The Great White Monster.
Objection, Your Honour. Prosecution is clearly leading the witness.
Overruled.
Prosecution submits Exhibit C, Your Honour, a 3090 mainframe. Why is it that the mainframe is the most expensive computing platform?
Because the same workload can run on much less expensive platforms, requiring less power to operate and do not require special rooms for cabling or cooling.
Thank you, Mr. Benchmarketing. Your witness.
Mr. Benchmarketing, you claim you can get the same performance from alternative platforms.
That's correct.
The same workload from an orange as an apple.
Correct.
And how did you come to these performance comparisons?
From the benchmarks we conducted.
I see. Now, are these the benchmarks you're referring to?
Yes, that's them.
Could you please explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the gallery how come not one of these benchmarks has a consistent operating system and database platform?
Well, so we can get maximum scalability and performance.
I see. Well, when you were asked to point out the mainframe, you had difficulty finding it. How come?
Because the slide wasn't on.
I see. Well, apart from the slide, can you identify another mainframe in this courtroom?
No, I can't.
I see. May I point this computer out here, Mr. Benchmarketing? This here is the latest enterprise server based on CMOS technology.
CMOS? What is this CMOS, Your Honour? Is it some sort of saltwater algae?
No, Mr. Buncombe. C as in the letter C for complementary, and MOS as in metal oxide semiconductor. And as of June 12, 1995, this computer here can deliver around 170 MIPS of processing power, and when coupled in a parallel sysplex configuration, can deliver in excess of 5,000 MIPS in a single image. Mr. Benchmarketing, would you like to compare this enterprise server with your benchmarks?
I'm not sure.
Well, no, look, I'm not surprised. In comparison, not only does performance not stack up, but scalability looks fairly sick as well. Instead of oranges and apples, maybe we should be talking about lemons.
Oh, objection!
Withdrawn, Your Honour. Mr. Benchmarking, is this what you compared to the cost of running an IBM mainframe against an alternative platform?
No, it was one of those old clunkers, a 3090.
A 3090?
Correct.
A 3090, ladies and gentlemen, that was superseded 5 years ago? Dear me, Mr. Benchmarking, welcome to the 90s. Now, Mr. Benchmarking, would you be surprised to learn that this computer here is what some have referred to in the past as an IBM mainframe?
If that's a mainframe, they certainly don't make them like they used to.
Thank you, Mr. Benchmarking. No further questions, Your Honour.
You may step down, Mr. Benchmarking.
Your Honour, I would like to submit evidence in the form of newspaper articles and consultants' reports that irrefutably show that the final arbiters, the ladies and gentlemen of the gallery, have already found the mainframe guilty by leaving it in their droves.
You are aware, aren't you, Councillor, that this form of evidence is deemed hearsay and as such not normally admissible in a court of law?
Isn't it?
Your Honour, if it pleases the court, the defence has no objection to this type of hearsay evidence being introduced. It is the very thing that creates a misconception we need to disprove.
Very well. Carry on, Mr. Buncombe.
Thank you very much, Your Honour. You're most just and kind.
Mr. Buncombe, get on with it.
Yes, Your Honour. For the record, I submit Prosecution's Exhibit C, an MIS magazine dated April 1995. And I draw your attention to this particular quotation. In just 36 months, we've made a large dent in IBM's heartland. And to add to this solid, factual and extremely unbiased evidence is the following ad placed by Hewlett-Packard: "They ain't what they used to be." Clear evidence, Your Honour, that the IT industry, as I said, are leaving the mainframe in their droves.
Thank you, Mr. Buncombe.
Like rats from a sinking ship, Your Honour.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Buncombe.
Like one-eyed mules from a forest full of...
Mr. Buncombe, sit down.
Yes, Your Honour.
Your Honour, I would like to offer the ladies and gentlemen of the gallery Newton's fourth law of journalism. For every article, there is an equal and opposite rebuttal article. The most obvious examples of this are, from the Computer World magazine, "Junk My Mainframe, You Bet." From the same edition, "Junk My Mainframe, No Way." Another example, from the Network Computing magazine, "The Mainframe Days Are Numbered." From the same edition, "Mainframes Forever." Let us look at some other titles. Negative one. Negative one. I'll take brilliant on that one. And now into some positive ones. In total, 189 articles published since January 1994 were researched, and those in favour of the mainframe clearly outnumbered those against. It was best said by John Chisholm in his recent article, "What's Really Happening to Mainframes?" and I quote, "Sensationalism. Just as the 1% of the population, that is murderers, rapists and politicians, get 90% of the publicity, the 1% of the mainframes being unplugged get 90% of the press coverage. Clearly, Your Honour, according to Newton's law of journalism, the mainframe is innocent."
The prosecution wishes to call Mr. Downsizer to the stand.
Mr. Downsizer? Mr. Downsizer? Mr. Downsizer? Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, as long as it doesn't challenge your IT strategy? So help you, Gates.
I do.
Please state your name and occupation for the court.
I am Downsizer, MIS manager for the Fairsize Manufacturing Company.
Mr. Downsizer, please tell the court in your own words your experience of moving from the mainframe to an alternative computing platform.
Certainly. We used to run an old mainframe. It was very expensive to operate. We had trouble finding applications or the latest development tools that would run on that platform. The ongoing monthly cost of software, maintenance, not forgetting power, constantly showed up in my budgets. stood out like a pacifist at a Doom 2 convention. While departments outside of mine were doing their own things on cheap PCs, I kept having to go to our financial controller, year in, year out, and beg for more money. In return, he would hand me articles on downside. Finally, we decided to move to the latest technologies and applications during the 90s. We selected one of the latest open, client-server, GUI, object-oriented, superhighway-enabled, Bill Gates-approved application packages, as recommended by our consultants, who by luck was also able to provide the implementation services. In fact, the application has been so successful that we now have servers in our accounting, manufacturing, and distribution departments.
Thank you, Mr. Downsizer.
Your Honour, may I approach the bench?
You may.
I'm coming too.
Your Honour, it would appear to me that the current witness and the previous witness look somewhat similar.
There's a perfectly logical explanation for that.
I'm pleased to hear it, Mr. Buncombe.
No problem, Your Honour.
Well,
Well, what?
can we have your explanation, please?
Explanation, yes. They're clones.
Clones?
Yes, clones. Why not? The IT industry is full of clones.
All right, that's enough. Buncombe, back to your seat. Please continue with your cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honour. Mr. Downsizer, did you consider the new CMOS Enterprise server to run your open, client-server, GUI, object-oriented, superhighway-enabled, Bill Gates-approved application package?
No, we didn't. Well, the software doesn't run on that platform.
Are you sure? Your Honour, Defence would like to submit Exhibit D, a list of independent software vendors that have or are porting their open client-server applications to run on the CMOS Enterprise server, including SAP, Oracle, Dun & Bradstreet, JD Edwards, PeopleSoft, and there's more.
Objection, Your Honour. Counsel for the Defence is sounding like a Demtel commercial.
Sustained. I would ask the defence to avoid any further Tim Shaw impersonations.
Yes, Your Honour. Mr. Downsizer, did you consider the System 390 Enterprise server?
No, we didn't. We compared everything against the mainframe we had at the time.
And how are you finding your new platform?
Very good. The odd problem, but nothing major. Hello? What do you mean you can't print? Oh, that's right. We updated the print server on the weekend. You'll have to get a copy of the latest print driver to replace the... Yes, sir. I know you're busy. OK. I'll have someone come over.
Happy user?
My financial controller, actually.
Who obviously doubles as a system programmer in his spare time. Is he still giving you articles on downsizing, I wonder? Apart from having your end users moonlight as sysprogs, are you happy with the overall availability and manageability of your new system?
Yes, very, very happy. We have a service level target of 95% uptime, and we meet that nearly every day. Hello? Yes, Joe. The manufacturing service fallen over? Have you implemented the BRS procedure? OK. Call me back in 8 hours when you're back up and running. Sorry about that, Your Honour.
Can't you turn that confounded thing off?
No, I can't, Your Honour.
Mr. Downsizer, the BRS procedure, would that be the Business Recovery System procedure by any chance?
No. It's the,
Mr. Downsizer, please answer the question.
It's the big red switch procedure, actually.
I see. Well, Mr. Downsizer, how would you like to be able to run your open, client-server, GUI, object-oriented, superhighway-enabled, Bill Gates-approved application package on a 24/7, high-availability, low-cost platform?
A computer that will allow me to turn off my mobile phone?
I'd like to see that.
Then maybe you should consider the new System 390 Enterprise server.
I can't answer that on the grounds that it might incriminate me.
I see.
But could I talk to you later?
Most certainly. No further questions, Your Honour.
Thank you. You may step down, Mr. Downsizer.
Your Honour, If it pleases the court, I would like to submit in summation for the prosecution a video that was mistakenly sent to me in a package marked IBM Confidential.
Objection, Your Honour. As the prosecution has stated, this has been received in an envelope marked IBM Confidential. It was obviously obtained without due course and therefore should be ruled inadmissible.
Overruled. This could be very interesting.
Ladies and gentlemen of the court, this video, which was made for internal use and marked IBM Confidential, shows that whilst IBM is trying to show that it is all transformed, all caring for the IT community, behind closed doors you can still hear them chant, "Big Iron."
Racing is like business. To win, you need speed, performance, and reliability. That takes big power and big iron. Sure, there are lots of little systems that share the work. A little roof rail smooths the airflow and makes the car knife through the air. Tweak the spoiler just right, and the car hugs the track through the turns. Too little, and it gives new meaning to taking a spin. In the everyday race of business, it's just as hard to stay on track. And people who've gone for a spin with smaller computer systems have discovered that winning still takes mainframe power, performance, and reliability. It takes big iron, like the new IBM System 390.
Big iron, big ideas. IBM.
Your Honour, they may rename it, they may reshape it, but in their heart of hearts, it will remain forever. Big iron, big iron, big iron.
Order.
Thank you, Your Honour. The case for the prosecution rests.
Your Honour, all the prosecution have been able to show are a couple of dubious witnesses, some hearsay articles, and an ancient IBM video that only goes to show we have a sense of humour. I therefore move for a dismissal of all charges.
Although I partially agree with you, Mr. Server, I do believe there are still some questions unanswered. And this court would like to hear further evidence that the mainframe has in fact transformed into this thing you call the enterprise server.
Yes, Your Honour. Well, ladies and gentlemen, one albeit tongue-in-cheek video deserves another more serious video. Please cast your minds back to April last year when we first announced the CMOS Enterprise Server. This, ladies and gentlemen, was the first stage in removing big iron forever.
This is what we came here to see!
This is IBM's newest general-purpose System 390 CMOS processor, the Parallel Enterprise Server. From a one-way to a six-way processor, IBM is delivering the classic strengths of System 390 architecture to a higher plane, but at a lower cost. Not just lower purchase and lease prices, but dramatically lower energy and maintenance costs, and footprints a fraction of older systems. The advances that will save cash, open up floor space, and reduce power consumption. All the things you need to free up the dollars you can invest to gain a competitive advantage and grow your business.
Special power? Forget it. Try fuzzy power on an emergency household generator. Watch this. Household current, about what it takes to run a clothes dryer. That's all it takes for this machine to crank out the same processing power as 5 3090 150s. Of course, if you're a traditionalist and you want to run your IT shop on a raised floor, now this is a raised floor! And this puppy is running just fine up here! CMOS machines don't need all that air conditioning. Officially, this one will run at 90 degrees. But right now,
it's over 115 degrees in the sun. It's so hot I can hardly talk.
And while humans need water, this machine doesn't. Which is good, because the nearest water is 5,000 feet down at the bottom of this canyon.
Your Honour, at this point I would like to show the ladies and gentlemen of the gallery some pictures of the crime scene.
Objection, Your Honour. There is no need to subject anyone to the horror of these pictures.
Your Honour, as unpleasant as it may be, it is important the ladies and gentlemen of the gallery see these pictures as clear evidence, as concrete evidence, that the mainframe has completely transformed.
Objection overruled. I will allow it. Ladies and gentlemen, I warn you to brace yourselves. The pictures you are about to see may be disturbing.
Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm about to show you are the remains of a typical data centre. This data centre housed around 120 MIPS, 360 gigabytes of storage, and a silo which housed over 40 terabytes of tape capacity. The first victim, a 3090-600J. I must point out that this is not full size. In fact, it's 1/10 the actual size. And accompanying it was the processor controller and multiple power and coolant units. In fact, you would have probably just been able to fit all that into this room. Not a pretty sight in this day and age. Accompanying it, of course, was the disk drives. And finally, the most horrifying picture of all, the floor space gobbling, self-breeding silo. What started out as one pod quickly grew into 2 pods, then 3 pods, and finally 4 pods, in order to house over 40 terabytes of tape capacity. When looking at all that, we have to ask ourselves, how can something this massive, this big, disappear? The only physical remains we could find was this. This, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the 6 engines that made up the 3090. It weighs 110 pounds and required 1,450 litres of water per hour to keep it cool. Amazing stuff, I'm sure you'll agree. I repeat my earlier question, how can something this massive disappear? The answer lies in what we found in the corner of the data centre. A CMOS 2 processor, like the one over here, that in this footprint can provide up to 1.5 times the processing power of the largest 3090 ever produced. 2 subsystems of RAMAC 2, containing also 360 gigabytes, in a high availability RAID 5 configuration and the proven performance leader. And the new Magstar tape drives in the tape library. Tape drives that can operate at 3 times the performance of its predecessor and designed to provide over 100 times the data integrity. Amazing stuff, I'm sure you'll agree. For your benefit, these diagrams have been included in a sealed envelope in your exhibits.
Objection, Your Honour. Pictures, diagrams, sealed envelopes. Next thing you'll be calling Hugh Grant as a character witness. What about real customers?
Real customers, Mr. Bunkum? Let us look what a real customer's doing. Let's go to Canada, the Toronto Dominion Bank, and see what they're doing with their spare data centre space.
Last year, we had 2 of these computers. All of this, all these boxes is one computer. Well, we replaced all those boxes with this box. Actually, half of this box. Now, there's a lot of benefit to all of this. By this time next year, all of this will be gone. And we'll have enough room for the Sysplex floor hockey team.
Again, we investigated further to see how this dramatic size reduction could occur. Instead of the 110 pounds of metal you see here, we found that the CMOS processor uses engines this big. Instead of the large 3390 disk assemblies, we found this RAMAC 2 disk drive that can contain 4 gigabytes of data. And instead of the traditional cartridges that can contain up to 600 megabytes, we found this new Magstar cartridge that can contain up to 30,000 megabytes of data. And a revolutionary new design in the tape drive that uses a movable read-write head to interleave multiple tracks of data. Excuse me, Your Honour.
Evidence has just come to hand.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's just been brought to my attention that we have found another victim. With over 100 CMOS engines installed in Australia since June last year, large amounts of data centre space has been reclaimed. This, sadly, is one of the many data centre builders no longer required. This all adds up, ladies and gentlemen, to dramatic savings in floor space, maintenance, power, hardware and software. And I think it comprehensively addresses the first charge of expensive computing in the first degree. But if you're still not convinced, let me show you what the consultants think. First of all, the cost of PC LANs per user. Then the cost of Unix servers per user. And finally, the lowest cost of all, the mainframe per user. This table is on page 10 of the white paper entitled Enterprise Client Server Computing and has been included in your exhibits which you received upon registration. And if you're still not convinced, then let me point out that this analysis was done before the announcement of CMOS, RAMAC and Magstar, before the enterprise server.
Objection, Your Honour. Next thing you'll be offering a free set of steak knives. Send no money, we'll bill you later. We concede that the IBM mainframe is no longer the expensive proposition that it was. But has it truly transformed? What about the things that Mr. Downsizer wanted? Open, client-server, GUI, object-oriented, superhighway enabled, Bill Gates approved.
Mr. Server, I believe Mr. Buncombe has a point here.
Yes, Your Honour. Let's address the first four requirements: open, client-server, GUI and object-oriented. To do this, the defence calls its first witness, Mr. Ray Kopinski.
Mr. Kopinski, Mr. Kopinski, Mr. Kopinski.
I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth because I work for IBM, so help me Gershner. My name is Ray Kopinski. I'm with the Open Client Server Center in Poughkeepsie, New York, the Mid-Hudson Valley Lab. Last time I was here in Australia was 26 years ago, June 1969, with the Apollo 11 mission in Alice Springs. 20 years later, I was involved in another NASA mission. The U.S. government required all federal computing systems to be open. In their terms, POSIX compliant. They found a mission-critical, open POSIX compliance system right under their nose. It was called MVS. So here I am 26 years later, involved in another great leap forward for mankind to prove IBM mainframe is open, client-server, GUI, and object-oriented. This is what we did. MVS 4.3, we did POSIX, and then with 5.2.2, 5.1 was XPG4 mostly, and 4.2, which is 5.2.2 this September, will be XPG 4.2, which used to be called Spec 1170, which is Universal Unix. We have 1,100 of the 1,170 APIs already done with 5.2.2. XPG4, with Unix, as we grew it, POSIX.1 and .2 wasn't enough. We have the Mortise Kern shell and utilities, the MKS shell from Toronto. Actually, Waterloo, just outside of Toronto. But I always say Toronto because everybody knows where that is. And we ported the MKS shell. It's now an MVS. The MKS shell runs on MVS, OS2, AIX, Windows NT, and MVS. Okay? And you run the same commands you run on any Unix system. The Unix programmer doesn't have to learn any MVS to do this stuff. You can run standard Unix shells. But if you look at the commands up here that Unix does, a lot of them start to make sense. A fork is actually a create of an address space. Okay? A spawn is create of a task inside an address space. Okay? You do puts and gets. We have pipes now. We always did pauses. You do opens. An open issues an SVC 34. We didn't go out and create a whole plethora of new code. What we did was use the existing MVS functions and mapped them out. The Unix functions that didn't exist, or we didn't have an exact one-to-one relationship for, we modified. Okay? So you're basically getting all the strengths of MVS, and yet the Unix programmer gets the same return codes, the same type of information and field that they would get in a normal Unix environment. Okay, a kill -9 with a process ID is a cancel user equals an MVS. Both commands stop the process, recover what resources you have, and then take you out of the system. So we were able to come up with a nice way of doing the MVS stuff and the Unix stuff all on the same platform without ever having to do anything strange to MVS. Because basically, all we had to do was add the APIs. Okay, and we also have an XDB debugger. We ported the debugger over, and which was kind of fun because when we did the debugging, we used structured dumps under MVS to debug the Unix debugger, and the Unix guys had never seen a structured dump. They thought it was kind of interesting that you could find the control block without having to be a wizard. It actually printed it out for them. We also added distributed compute environment, DCE, OSF DCE. The reason we did this is TCP/IP lacked a few things, so did NFS. NFS, if I mount a data set, okay, and I can use it, that's fine, that's great, I love it. The problem is if I have an application that mounts that data set and you've moved that data set, my application stops working. With DCE, what happens is it goes to the directory and says, where's the data? So it doesn't matter where you put it or how many times you move it. It also will get security, and when you go for the data, RACF will check. There's a RACF interoperability next year between DCE and RACF security, and it'll say, are you authorized? And if you are, you'll get the data. Also, the time services. People don't realize all these PCs out there have clocks. You need your data in sequence, chronologically. So you have to have something that keeps those clocks in sync. And for security purposes, we're using Kerberos. If you have third-party authentication and your PC's timestamp is out of whack, what happens? You come in, you say, I want to get to the data, looks at the timestamp, says, this thing's an hour old, you're out of here. AnyNet. AnyNet will allow you to do TCP/IP across SNA backbone. Okay, so if you have somebody out there at the end of your SNA network, but they actually want to do TCP/IP because they're stubborn or it's cheaper or whatever the reason, you can accommodate them with AnyNet products. More client-server, okay? More high-function devices connected to large systems. And it's going to be a hub-and-spoke type of concept, just like the airlines are doing. Because people are finding out they really do need centrally managed data. You distribute your data, you have a thing called queuing theory. You know, in Unix, queuing theory is the next person waits. Can't afford to do that on a big system. Can't. So what we're doing is we're taking the strengths of the large system, we'll hold the centralized data, we'll do the record locking and handle that for you, and then take advantage of the high-function terminal, which will be out there on the network, give the user a GUI package, things they can see, point and click, quick response, store and forward, all the kind of good stuff. In today's world, if I wanted to run my application here against a IMS or a DB2 and send it over the network and put it to this guy and print it on the screen, put it on his DASD, store and forward, and go out there to the printer, okay, I'd have to write a lot of code. And it'd have to be very intelligent, and I would probably be called a consultant, and I'd cost you a lot of money. Because I would know the languages for each one of these workstations, all the protocols, all the software, and all the hardware. That's how much I need to know to do that. Or I'd have to have a pretty large group of people with specialists in each of those platforms. In an object world, all I have to do is know where the libraries are, what objects are contained in them, and then mount those libraries and select the objects. I'm tying them together with Visual Gen or Visual Age. The products that we have today, true client-server products, okay? This person now becomes an architect, but this person isn't an expert in all that assembly language code and old COBOL and C and C++. This person here just knows how to use the visual tools. Because we're doing the open standards, this may or may not be an IBM system. We hope it's an IBM system, but if it's not, I can still talk to it. 750,000 lines of code, 3 weeks, and it was ported. There are only 2 functions we didn't have, 2 APIs we didn't have. Those are in the book to be done. But if the API is not there, MVS does it usually anyway. They had to use an MVS function twice, okay? Early porting experiences. Ported Mosaic in 3 days. Ported Gopher over a weekend. GNU, which is a Unix utility, 10 minutes. No changes. We did the World Wide Web server from NCSA. We took it to Internet 95 and showed it. You know, we decided to do that a week before we were supposed to show up. Took their Mosaic server off there, which is public domain, recompiled it, ran it on MVS. It issued 2 warning messages and started. We didn't write 1 line of code. HP, Sun, AIX, OS2 will all NFS mount, even DOS, directly onto MVS. Now, if they're really creative, and they are, Unix people are very creative, what they found out right away was that they go through the Unix services, and you can come in through the Unix services from any MVS facility. Or you can use any Unix facility and go get some MVS service. So the Unix guys can add recovery. The Mortise kernel shell and utilities that runs on MVS has a recovery. If you abend, do something that causes an abend in your address space, it writes a record to logrec, it takes a dump, okay, recovers the address space, and you're back up and running. Doesn't crash the system, doesn't lock up, doesn't do any of those things that you have to worry about. If you look at the POSIX.1 and the POSIX.2 standards, you see the Unix world is pushing towards the kind of things that MVS always did. Like they want system administration, they want security, they want interoperability, they want networking, they want batch administration. Those are the things that MVS always did. So the Unix world, they're going from an academic and research world into a commercial world, and they need to do a lot of the things that we did in the MVS environment trying to solve commercial data processing problems. There's nothing new in data processing. The paradigm is the hardware is cheaper, and it's a little different, but line speeds control things, hardware is hardware, and costs are costs. And that you can't get away from queuing theory, even in Unix. So I'm sure you can see that MVS is an open, client-server, GUI, object-oriented system. NASA agrees, the Institute of Testing agrees, the standards body agree, software developers agree, and now maybe even Mr. Bunkum agrees that MVS is an open, client-server, GUI, object-oriented system. Thank you.
Your Honour, I have some further expert evidence on video, but it was not done under oath.
Objection, Your Honour. How can we be sure that this expert knows what he or she are talking about?
Your Honour, it is from an independent industry consultant.
An independent industry consultant. That's different.
Thank you.
Proceed, Mr. Server.
Thank you, Your Honour.
A recent Metafax flash report published by the independent Metagroup noted that new applications account for a major part of the recent mainframe resurgence. Earlier, System 390 magazine talked with a senior researcher at Metagroup's Enterprise Data Center Strategies Unit.
From Metagroup's Harborside headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut, we are joined by senior researcher Rob Schaefer. Rob, tell us about the Metagroup finding.
At Metagroup, we've found recent surveys here at Metagroup have found that good 25% of what we consider to be quite robust System 390 growth, recent System 390 growth in the 30 to 35% range, 25% of that growth has been from new applications. And these are new applications that have really never been on the mainframe before.
As this conversation is taking place, IBM is preparing to announce 12 new, more powerful CMOS processors. Do you believe these will replace the 3090J stuff that's out there now?
Is there any question? Yeah, our analysis of the soon-to-be-announced new CMOS systems, there's no question that from an environmental standpoint, especially with the entry server option that is being offered by IBM, that should provide a very, very attractive alternative to existing 3090 across the line. From both a performance standpoint and clearly the environmentals will make it very, very attractive. We are projecting that there should be a strong migration from the 3090 line into CMOS. Basically, if, you know, from a user standpoint, if not now, when? Is a good way to sum it up.
Now I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, Rob. New applications, new CMOS. Bottom line it for us.
I mean, really what it comes down to is folks have come, the pendulum has come back from the early 90s, the early 90s where it was very much the fashion to say System 390 is at least, at best case, dying, and that we have to get off and we have to not even consider any new mainframe applications. It's our judgment that clearly we're not going back to the days of the early 80s where everything was centralized System 390. But by the same token, the conventional wisdom clearly is being proven wrong, at least by our surveys, that say that new applications specifically is in large measure due to the responsible for the growth in System 390.
Thank you very much, Rob.
Your Honour, Mr. Kopinski covered the new age capabilities of the enterprise server, and Mr. Schaefer of the Metagroup explained how customers are putting their applications back on the IBM mainframe. I therefore believe we have addressed Mr. Downsize's requirements of open, client-server, GUI and object-oriented. I also believe that we have put to rest the charges of proprietary operating system and failure to provide client service.
Mr. Server, but what about superhighway enabled?
Yes, Your Honour. Let us hear from IBM CEO and Chairman Lou Gerstner on that one.
Hello, I'm Lou Gerstner, Chairman of IBM. On behalf of all of us at IBM, I'd like to welcome you to our worldwide web server.
If you're interested in large systems, you can link to the LSCD page. There's a little welcome from General Manager Nick D'Onofrio in items such as this story on American Airlines' use of the new System 390 Parallel Enterprise Server.
As Mr. Kabinski stated, combining the internet and openness, we have migrated the Mosaic World Wide Web Explorer software to run under MBS. And to help you feel even more secure,
And IBM, famous for the security of its systems, has made an important commitment to the future security on the internet by investing in Teresa Systems, a leading developer of encryption technology.
The Teresa technology is expected to let online marketers take credit card orders over the internet while protecting the cardholders from prying eyes of would-be techno thieves.
and now finally, Bill Gates approved.
Come on. If this is another video, there's going to be more videotape in this trial than the New South Wales Police Corruption Inquiry.
Mr. Buncombe.
No, Mr. Buncombe, not another video. From the Windows magazine itself, an article titled, "It's Time for Windows Users to Stop Mainframe Bashing." And also, the IBM records show that Microsoft have a CMOS-based mainframe installed, an IBM Enterprise server installed. What more can I say? Therefore, Your Honour, not only does the System 390 Enterprise server provide the lowest cost of computing, in fact, and I believe we approve beyond any doubt that it is an open, client-server, GUI, object-oriented, superhighway-enabled, Bill Gates-approved platform for your applications. In fact, it is the best of both worlds. And I think we've addressed the first three charges. This leaves, ladies and gentlemen, the remaining charge, the charge of complicity in complexity. According to the concise Oxford Dictionary, the definition of complicity is partnership in evil action. Let us start with the action. The mainframe has been asked to deliver a platform on which businesses, organisations can run their businesses day in, day out, without fail. To do this, they use what some refer to these days as the ITIs. They are reliability, availability, security, integrity, scalability. Is delivering this evil? Is delivering the very things that you, ladies and gentlemen, have requested, have required, have implemented evil? Is the prosecution therefore saying that you, ladies and gentlemen, are the partners of this evil action? Please join me in my outrage at such an accusation.
Oh, my dear ladies and gentlemen, please accept my apologies. I meant no offence
Mr.
at all.
Buncombe, sit down.
Thank you, Your Honour.
Proceed, Mr. Servan.
Now, no one is denying that information technology is complex. Therefore, if you want to call the mainframe complex because it delivers a wide range of solutions to meet these complex requirements, then so be it. But there is one more ITI, one more classic strength we haven't mentioned that has become the most important ITI of all, and that is manageability. This is what we're talking about. But let us not make the same mistake as the British politician who in 1900 recommended the closure of the Patents Office because there was nothing left to invent. We are already looking towards the next rise, the next challenge, the next requirements as we race towards the next century. Our friends Mr. Benchmarking and Mr. Downsizer are patting themselves on the back for merely reaching base camp. Let us look beyond base camp. Let us look towards the future.
You are looking at the world's best supercomputer with millions of liquid-cooled, simple compute engines, unmatched portability, flawless speech synthesis, incomparable visual recognition, even remote arm and hand controlled so fine, its end users can perform microsurgery. It is, of course, the human brain, the world's finest supercomputer. What is it about the human brain that can dash for a train, check the time, remember which pocket contains the ticket home,
fumble for change for a paper, and check the track number all at once. Yet a phalanx of state-of-the-art electronic computers are still looking for the clock. How can a human brain flying at 5,000 feet interpret optical impulses, a speck in the ocean, better than the best computers the Coast Guard can muster to find a downed pilot at sea? How? Why? Because the brain's processors are working in concert, in parallel. But 1,000 processors won't find the clock or the pilot any faster unless they work together. Now, with IBM's Parallel Sysplex breakthrough, you can fire up hundreds of System 390 engines together in concert, and each engine has the same direct access to all shared data. That means a Parallel Sysplex can continue to add capacity when traditional systems are on their knees. Each engine is connected to the coupling facility, which serves as a conductor, orchestrating the workload at 10 times the speed of today's fastest SCON fiber channels, while keeping track of where all the data is. It's the conductor, the coupling facility that puts parallel processors into the Parallel Sysplex. Almost anyone can talk about parallel processors. Only IBM can deliver Parallel Sysplex processing. And there's still only one parallel processor that surpasses that. And that's an unparalleled achievement from IBM.
The world is truly becoming a smaller place. As we talk of a network-centric world, technology is allowing us to put data, applications, and screens where it makes sense. You no longer have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. The System 390 Enterprise Server is the best, mission-critical, robust server today and into the future. It is the server of servers. It is truly one of IBM's many solutions for a small planet. The case for the defence rests, Your Honour.
Ladies and gentlemen of the gallery, never before have I seen such a one-sided case. Not only has Mr. Enterprise Server proved that the mainframe is innocent of all charges, but has in fact been transformed into the server of servers. My rulings, therefore, are as follows. The mainframe has been found not guilty of all charges. In addition, I proclaim from this day forward that the IBM mainframe is to be known as the Enterprise Server. J.J. Bunkum QC, for your obvious bias, I find you guilty of contempt of computing and sentence you to 390 hours of System 390 client service. Mr. Server, I do, however, find the defence guilty of one charge, and that is failure to sufficiently communicate the Enterprise Server message. I therefore rule that you ensure that this message reaches all customers. This court is now adjourned.